Costco famously sells plenty of delicious store-brand items, but if you're counting your calories closely, you may want to avoid these signature selections. To simplify the task of finding the unhealthiest items from Costco, this list utilizes the daily value limits as standardized by the FDA. This system has established a daily intake of 2,000 calories as the baseline for its suggested nutrient values. So the following foods are considered unhealthy because they have a relatively high level of calories, saturated fat, sodium, or added sugars in a single serving based on a 2,000-calorie diet. With that in mind, many of Costco's most unhealthy food items can be found in the bakery, and the Kirkland Signature Cheesecake really stands out in this section. A single 120-gram slice has 29 grams of fat in total, 18 of which are saturated. That's 90% of the daily recommended value and well over the limit suggested by the American Heart Association. One serving also has 26 grams of sugar. If you want to stick to the suggested serving size for this incredibly rich cheesecake, you'll have to cut it into 16 slices. So unless you have 15 friends close by, you'll need the willpower of a monk to stop at just one.
I know you were a Buddhist monk and kept a vow of silence.
Would you prefer to remain silent here as well?
Unhealthy Kirkland Signature products come in all shapes, sizes, and sections, including the lobster bisque. It's both unhealthy and not particularly tasty either. But just how bad is it? A single cup has a rather excessive 20 grams of saturated fat, as well as 730 milligrams of sodium. That may give this bisque a rich, savory flavor, but it also makes it a major contributor to high blood pressure. And at 380 calories per cup, you'd be wise to stop at just one of them. But hey, at least it's keto-friendly. If you're looking for a healthier alternative to this lobster bisque, consider other seafood-based soups with lighter broths. Much of the fattiness of the bisque comes from its broth, which is traditionally made with cream or butter. Although Kirkland's signature butter croissants are undeniably delicious, they score rather low when it comes to nutritional value. Considering that they're mostly flour and butter, that shouldn't be too surprising. A single 69-gram croissant is about 300 calories. It also contains 11 grams of saturated fat, which is over half of the daily recommended value. But, of course, it's all too easy to eat more than one of these croissants at once, especially since they come in 12 packs. Or worse yet, you may be tempted to use them for a breakfast sandwich or dip them in chocolate, upping the calorie count even more. A healthy alternative would be some dark, whole grain bread, which has more fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Pizza isn't exactly known for being healthy, and the Kirkland Signature Cheese Pizza is no different. The dough is made from refined carbohydrates, and the cheese, while rich in calcium and protein, is also high in saturated fat and calories. A single serving is a quarter of a pie and comes out to about 129 grams. It also includes 6 grams of saturated fat and 790 milligrams of sodium, each of which accounts for about a third of the maximum daily value. All of this assumes that you are eating the pizza plain and not adding additional unhealthy toppings. Also, who can stop themselves from eating more than a quarter of the pie?
Pizza, going tummy, me so hungry.
If you thought that Kirkland Signature's Supreme Cauliflower Crust Pizza might be a healthy alternative to traditional pizza, we have bad news for you. It may replace a classic pizza's refined flour base with some healthy vegetables, but its saturated fat and sodium values are actually higher than those of Kirkland Signature's cheese pizza. A serving of 2 slices contains about 310 calories, as well as 8 grams of saturated fat and 900 milligrams of sodium, compared to 6 grams and 790 milligrams in the cheese pizza. The lesson here is to scrutinize supposedly healthy foods as carefully as you would anything else in your shopping cart. Just because it sounds better for you doesn't mean it actually is better for you. Costco's beloved muffins are a breakfast staple in many households, but they should really only be enjoyed as an occasional indulgence. There are many flavors available, but all of them are far too sugary to be a part of a balanced breakfast. The blueberry muffin is probably the healthiest, relatively speaking. One serving has 290 calories, 3.5 grams of fat, 250 milligrams of sodium, and 16 grams of added sugar. The coffee cake variety, on the other hand, is even richer. One serving contains 330 calories, 9 grams of fat, 350 milligrams of sodium, and a whopping 26 grams of added sugar. Also, keep in mind that one serving of most Costco muffins is just half the muffin. If you treat yourself to a whole one, you'll have to double all of those statistics. For a healthy alternative, perhaps you could opt for a banana and some toast.
Banana?
Costco's deli section offers a number of ready-made platters for no-fuss comfort meals, including the Kirkland Signature mac and cheese. But as delicious as this delicacy is, it should be avoided if you have any interest in eating healthy. Between its scrumptious cheese blend of Romano, Parmesan, and cheddar, and its rich Alfredo sauce, this mac and cheese is almost entirely empty calories. One 128-gram serving contains 290 calories, 11 grams of saturated fat, and 410 milligrams of sodium, while offering almost nothing in terms of vitamins or minerals. The saturated fat content amounts to about 84% of the maximum daily intake suggested by the American Heart Association. Since there's essentially no alternative to fresh mac and cheese's warm, delicious flavor, try to make this a somewhat healthier meal by incorporating some protein and vegetables. Costco's Kirkland Signature cookies come in many different flavors, none of which are remotely healthy. Out of all of them, triple chocolate is probably the worst for you. It is, after all, the highest in sugar. However, they're all so deficient in nutritional value that it's not really worth distinguishing the worst offender. One serving of the triple chocolate has 210 calories, 5 grams of saturated fat, and 20 grams of sugar. And that's just one 50-gram cookie. In general, the sheer calorie density and deliciousness of cookies are what makes them so dangerous. If you simply can't resist indulging in some tasty morsels, maybe make your own at home instead so that you can control the sugar content. You can purchase the Kirkland Signature Chicken Bake in a frozen take-home box, but don't expect it to be much healthier than the food court version. Despite minor differences in their recipes, both versions are essentially just tubes of dough, cheese, and processed meat. A single serving is one 227-gram sandwich, which contains a massive 580 calories, as well as 6 grams of saturated fat and a whopping 1,370 milligrams of sodium. That's 60% of your daily sodium value from just one sandwich. Excessive levels of sodium may put you at risk for stroke, heart failure, high blood pressure, and more. On the plus side, one chicken bake also contains 35 grams of protein, but there are definitely smarter ways to increase your daily protein intake. If you're in need of a healthy alternative, consider making a lean plate of grilled chicken and some broccoli as a side. The Kirkland Signature Krinkle Cut Kettle chips aren't the most egregiously unhealthy option at Costco, but they're still worth pointing out, thanks to their massive package and laughably small serving size of just 9 chips. That rather minuscule serving will set you back 150 calories, or about 17 calories per chip. One serving also has 110 milligrams of sodium and 1 gram of saturated fat. So while it's fair to say that a handful of these chips aren't quite as bad for you as a buttery croissant, the hard part is stopping at just a handful. On the plus side, these chips are at least slightly healthier than Ruffles.
Ruffles have that extra something, you know what it is.
Thankfully, there are many healthier alternatives in the salty and crunchy snack department, such as the various varieties of vegetable chips. It's pretty well known that health-conscious shoppers should avoid fried foods, which is why you ought to be careful around the Costco Kirkland Signature tempura shrimp. After all, tempura is really just another way of saying deep fried. One serving from this package equates to about 3 shrimp and contains 290 calories, 5.3 grams of saturated fat, and 460 milligrams of sodium. This amounts to a little more than 20% of the daily recommended values for sodium and saturated fat, which isn't too bad, but it only gets worse when you incorporate the dipping sauce, which isn't included in the nutritional information. It's soy sauce based, so it'll add a lot more sodium to the final count. Seafood lovers looking for a healthy alternative just need to cut the oil and tempura batter out of the equation to get a wholesome and nutritious meal. The high-calorie content of trail mix makes sense for a hiker who plans to walk for miles and miles through rough terrain, but it's far more dubious as a snack for someone sitting at a desk all day. One 30-gram serving of the Kirkland Signature trail mix has 160 calories, which is more than the Crinkle Cut Kettle chips without being much healthier. While its saturated fat and sodium levels are decent, one serving has 10 grams of sugar, likely due to the addition of M&Ms. And as is the case with most bagged snack foods, sticking to the suggested serving size requires a fair degree of discipline. Still, trail mix doesn't have to be terribly unhealthy, so long as you watch your portion sizes and use it for its intended purpose of fueling outdoor adventures. A tin of Kirkland Signature European cookies may be a popular treat for special occasions, but they're in no way acceptable as part of a normal diet. Surely, you know at this point that cookies are bad for you, but sometimes it helps to be reminded of what's obvious. The suggested serving size of 4 small cookies amounts to 170 calories, 6 grams of saturated fat, and 13 grams of sugar, and they don't provide any beneficial macronutrients, vitamins, or minerals. While this tin contains over a dozen different kinds of cookies, the provided nutritional information doesn't distinguish one from another. So it's safe to assume that a serving size of 4 cookies is equally bad regardless of which combination you consume.
Cookie, sometime food.
That's right, Cookie.
Yeah.
While Costco is more covert about some of its Kirkland rebranded products, it makes no effort to hide the fact that its sugary, bean-shaped confections are actually Jelly Belly Gourmet jelly beans. That would be hard to hide after all, since their appearance is rather iconic. They're also iconically unhealthy, especially when they come in a 4-pound container. These little sugar beans are completely devoid of any nutritional value. This is abundantly clear when you notice that the first listed ingredients on the label are sugar and corn syrup. A 40-gram serving includes about 28 grams of sugar, which accounts for more than half of its weight. Jelly beans also have high amounts of artificial colorings, which have reportedly been linked to hyperactive behavior, especially in children. Just because Costco doesn't make its own generic sodas doesn't mean that this grocery giant doesn't dirty its hands by selling overly sugary beverages. Kirkland Signature Lemonade is every bit as unhealthy as soda, despite being made from organic lemon juice. It's pure sugar, so it should only be consumed on special occasions, if at all. One 8-ounce serving contains 130 calories and a ridiculous 32 grams of added sugar, which is more than an equally sized can of Coca-Cola. And with no vitamins or minerals listed on the label, it's certainly much closer to soda than juice in terms of nutritional value. Thankfully, there are many healthy alternatives. Kirkland makes a tasty 0-calorie lemon-flavored sparkling water, for example, as do many other brands.